The second coming is when Jesus comes back to earth with his church. It's 7 years later.
The sirens didn't just echo, they pierced. Smoke twisted over Jerusalem's skyline as firestorms danced between ancient tombs. But this wasn't war. It was something older, something holy. Beneath the smoke, near Gethsemane, a word formed in Hebrew letters, Hineni. Here I am. It wasn't painted, it burned. And at 3:33 p.m., a sound like a trumpet split the silence. People wept. Some dropped to their knees. This wasn't just disaster, it was declaration. The sky above Jerusalem wasn't calm. It writhed. A firestorm twisted through the air between the Mount of Olives and the Kidron Valley. It was no ordinary blaze. This one had direction, purpose. And witnesses, dozens of them, said the smoke didn't just rise, it formed. Hebrew letters, etched by flame, hovered for a moment above the hills. Hineni. Here I am. The same word Abraham whispered on Moriah when God called his name. The same word Moses spoke at the burning bush. The same word Isaiah offered before being sent. That word was written in fire, in the heart of the most prophetically charged city on earth. It happened at 3:33 p.m. The number struck many as strange, until they remembered Jeremiah 33:3. Call to me and I will answer you, and show you great and unsearchable things you do not know. And on that day, something answered. Lightning forked across a sky with no clouds. Winds shifted against natural patterns. Sacred sites, like the Church of All Nations and ancient tombs on the Mount of Olives, remained untouched, yet modern buildings beside them were scorched to rubble. Some called it coincidence. Others said it was the whisper of judgment. But those who know prophecy saw it for what it was, a warning in symbols, a trumpet blast not of brass, but of flame, a call to attention. And if the fire was the opening cry, what is coming behind it? What happens when a city chosen by God begins to speak again, not in words, but in wonders? What force is shaking Jerusalem now? The smoke is gone, but the mark remains, and the question still lingers in the air like ash. Did the fire mark the beginning of the end, or the end of the beginning? Jerusalem has never been silent. Even in ruins, it echoes. Nations have risen to claim her. Babylon, Rome, the Ottomans, the British. Each empire tried to stamp their name onto her stones, but the city refused to forget its true identity. She is not a city built by men. She is a covenant carved in dust and blood. Zechariah saw it before the turmoil began. He wrote, "Jerusalem will become a cup of trembling, a burdensome stone for all people." And today, that word is alive. Every headline proves it. A prayer whispered at the Western Wall sparks outrage in Parliament chambers across oceans. A visit to the Temple Mount ignites riots in cities thousands of miles away. Every brick laid, every breath drawn inside the old city pulls on strings buried deep in global politics and ancient prophecy. Why? Because Jerusalem is not just a place. She is a pressure point in the spirit. Iran points missiles. The UN passes resolutions. Russia and China build quiet alliances with enemies at Israel's gates. And yet, the center of this storm is a hill barely 2 square kilometers wide. The world treats Jerusalem like a pawn, but heaven sees her as a throne. She is the city where Abraham laid his son upon an altar, the city where David ruled, the city where the temple once held the presence of God, and the city where the Messiah wept, died, and rose. To touch Jerusalem is to touch prophecy, and as nations gather with agendas and alliances, they don't realize the weight they place upon themselves. For Zechariah's words did not stop at trembling. He warned, all that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces. The trembling has begun, but the cutting, that waits. For Jerusalem is once again at the center of treaties, of tensions, of time itself. And the pressure is building, because when the city of the great king shakes, the earth does not ignore her, and heaven does not either. So ask yourself, if the shaking has started, what is it shaking loose? What ancient structure is straining to rise beneath the rubble? What sealed gate is beginning to breathe? No nation had ever come back from the dead, until Israel did. For nearly 2,000 years, the Jewish people were scattered, torn from their land, their language, their temple, their city. They wandered through exile, pogroms, ghettos, and genocide. And yet, they remembered. They remembered Jerusalem. Every prayer, every Sabbath meal, every whispered blessing ended the same way. Next year in Jerusalem. Isaiah once posed the impossible. Can a nation be born in a day? And the answer came, not in metaphor, but in May 14th, 1948. With the world still aching from war, a voice cracked through a radio in Tel Aviv. The state of Israel is born. In a moment, prophecy woke. Hebrew, long dormant, began rolling from the tongues of newborns. Ancient cities were rebuilt on top of rubble, and from the ashes of the Holocaust, survivors returned, not to survive, but to plant, to fight, and to live. The miracle was not in the borders, it was in the blood. God had promised through the prophets, I will bring them from the north country and from the ends of the earth. And he did. From Ukraine's war zones, from Ethiopia's remote mountains, from the suburbs of France, from Brooklyn's quiet streets, planes touched down with passengers carrying only a suitcase and a story. They didn't come for comfort. They came because something ancient stirred, an invisible pull written into the soul. They weren't migrating. They were returning. Aliyah. Not just a policy, not a political project, a prophetic pulse, returning to covenant. And yet, they didn't return to safety. Israel has lived under the shadow of war since the day it was reborn. Sirens, bomb shelters, enemies on every side. Still, they come, because this isn't about escape, it's about fulfillment. And in the heartbeat of each returning soul, you can hear the promise still echoing. I will bring you back to the land I gave your fathers, and you shall dwell in it. But if the people have returned, what are they being prepared for? What comes after the homecoming? What happens when the ones God called home stand face to face with the throne he's preparing? Before the prophecy rose, the land lay still, scorched, empty, forgotten. In 1867, Mark Twain called it a desolate country, silent and mournful. He saw nothing but thorns and stones, lifeless valleys, and abandoned fields, but the prophets had seen something else. Isaiah wrote, "The wilderness shall rejoice and blossom as the rose." And today, what once was barren sings with color. Vineyards now lace the hills of Galilee. Pomegranates swell beneath desert suns. Olive trees stand where ruins once slept. The Negev, once the symbol of sterility, is now a global leader in desert agriculture. Drip irrigation, pioneered by Israel, feeds nations. Farms flourish where no rain falls. Fruit is exported from land once deemed cursed. It's not just innovation, it's alignment. The land wasn't waiting for science, it was waiting for its people. Only when the scattered returned did the soil soften. Only when the covenant was stirred did the ground remember its purpose. Because this land was never just dirt, it was promise. From the moment God told Abraham, "Walk through it, for I will give it to you," to the days the prophets wept over its fall, This ground has groaned with expectation. And now, under the feet of its returning people, it awakens. Fields blossom like prophecy. Harvests overflow like revelation. And beneath every tree, every vineyard, every bloom, there's a whisper, not of science, of scripture. Because only one nation blooms like this. Only one desert sings like this. Only one covenant breathes in the soil. But if the land is alive again, what is it growing toward? If the wilderness has started to blossom, what flower is yet to unfold? Pain doesn't always mean the end. Sometimes it means something is beginning. Jesus didn't leave his disciples in the dark. He spoke of it plainly. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. Nation will rise against nation. These, he said, are the beginning of sorrows, not punishment, but labor. The Greek word he used was Odin, birth pains, contractions, tightening waves of chaos that come before something new is born. And now, the world is groaning. Iran and Israel teeter on the edge of open war. Cyber attacks darken cities in minutes. Missiles scream across skies without warning. Drones, silent and precise, descend like insects with iron wings. In hidden bunkers, Israeli leaders say one thing plainly: we will not allow another Holocaust. And in underground labs, Iran spins uranium, ignoring every call for restraint. Their intentions aren't secret. They speak of wiping Israel off the map. And still, the world does nothing. But this is not yet the war of Gog and Magog. This is not yet the Valley of Armageddon. This is not the final trumpet. This is the pressure, the building, the ache before the arrival. Because the end doesn't come like a flood. It comes like labor, painful, progressive, unstoppable. Each strike, each retaliation, each alliance drawn in fear. They are not accidents, they are contractions. And for those watching with spiritual eyes, there's something deeper than politics at play. Something is moving beneath the surface, not just armies, a shift in the heavens. Because Jesus didn't say the world would simply collapse. He said it would unravel. And now, one thread at a time, it is. So what is it making room for? If these are the labor pains, what child is being born? What arrival is so holy, so terrifying, that the earth must first tremble in preparation? Peace is a beautiful lie when it comes too easily. The world applauds. Cameras flash. Hands are shaken. Treaties signed, and leaders smile beneath banners of diplomacy. But beneath the surface, something smolders. 1 Thessalonians 5:3 rings louder now than ever. When they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction will come upon them. And that's exactly what they're saying. The Abraham Accords, the quiet normalization of ties between Israel and Arab nations. Whispers of broader alliances, Saudi Arabia next perhaps. But peace founded on fear is not peace at all. Many of these agreements are not born from friendship, but from mutual hatred of a common enemy, Iran. It's not reconciliation. It's a pause in the storm. These accords were not forged in trust, but in trembling. And now, beneath every olive branch extended, there's a hidden blade. Because the Bible doesn't say destruction follows chaos. It says it follows calm, a deceptive calm, a temporary quiet. The prophets warned that the final deception will not come cloaked in horror, but in hope, in smiles, in unity speeches and historic breakthroughs. But while men shake hands, armies move in shadows. While leaders toast to the future, missiles are positioned. And while the world sighs in relief, the enemy sharpens his deception. Peace will be the bait, and the trap is nearly set. Because before the temple can be desecrated, before the Antichrist is revealed, before the judgment falls. There must be a moment when the world lets down its guard. And now we are letting go. So if the treaties are inked, if the stage is dressed in olive branches, who is waiting in the wings? And when the curtain rises, will the world even know what it's applauding? There is a place in Jerusalem where the air feels heavier, not because of the altitude, but because of what once stood there and what may rise again. The Temple Mount. To the world, it is the most contested real estate on earth. To Jews, it is the site of the first and second temples, where heaven once touched earth. To Muslims, it is Al-Haram al-Sharif, the third holiest site in Islam. To Christians, it is the very place where Jesus taught, wept, and overturned the tables. 3 faiths, 1 hill, and the weight of eternity pressing down upon it. But beneath the prayers and protests, beneath the layers of restriction and riot, something else stirs. Preparation. Plans for a third temple no longer live in dreams. They're printed, drawn, financed, measured. Sacred vessels have been recreated with biblical precision. Priestly garments have been woven. Levitical choirs rehearse ancient songs. Red heifers, needed for temple purification, have been bred and identified. And now, for the first time in nearly 2,000 years, a high priest has been appointed. Baruch Kahan. Trained, anointed, genetically traced to Aaron himself. This is no longer a theory. This is readiness. The only thing missing is permission, access. For now, Islamic authorities control the Mount, and any Jewish movement, any hint of construction, even prayer, sparks global outrage. But prophecy doesn't wait on permits. History shifts in moments, and it only takes one event, a crisis, a conflict, an agreement behind closed doors, to swing the gate open. And when that moment comes, the system is already in place. The priests are ready. The altar stands. The vessels gleam under lock and key. And the hill will no longer be silent. Because the Temple Mount is not just ground. It is a prophetic trigger. And once it is pulled, it will not click softly. It will explode. So what rises from those stones? A house of worship? A throne for deception? Or the fire that consumes both? The title is not honorary. The garments are not symbolic. The training is not theoretical. The high priest has returned. After 2,000 years of silence, the office that once stood between God and Israel has been restored. His name is Baruch Kahan, descendant of Aaron, confirmed by DNA, prepared by law, trained in sacrifice. This is not pageantry, it is protocol. He knows the rituals. He's walked through rehearsals. He's touched the sacred instruments. The same instruments God commanded Moses to create. The altar has been built. The red heifer, unblemished, waits. The priesthood is ready. The Temple Institute, long dismissed as fringe, has quietly moved from vision to logistics. What once sounded fanatical is now operational. The only barrier left? A spark, a moment, a permission, a gate opened, whether by treaty, by war, or by divine appointment. And when that happens, sacrifices could resume in days. Imagine it. Smoke rising once more from the Temple Mount. Chants in ancient Hebrew echoing down the Kidron Valley. Blood spilled, not for spectacle, but for atonement. But here lies the danger. Because prophecy does not speak of these sacrifices with delight. It warns. Daniel spoke of it first. A covenant confirmed. Sacrifices begun. And then suddenly stopped. Paul echoed it. A man of sin revealed, standing in the temple, proclaiming himself as God, and Jesus named it, the abomination of desolation. It cannot happen unless temple worship is active. It cannot be desecrated if it does not first exist. And now, it does. Every vessel, every law, every priest, including one fully trained, fully authorized, who stands ready to enter the Holy of Holies. But the true Holy of Holies has already been entered, once and for all, by the Lamb who tore the veil. And yet, the world will soon watch as sacrifices resume, blind to what they're walking into, because the return of ritual is not a revival, it is the countdown, and if the priest is ready to enter, who else is preparing to take his seat? He will not come with horns, he will come with answers. Not as a beast, but as a man the world has been conditioned to accept, charismatic, unifying, even divine, the Antichrist. For centuries, his name has stirred speculation, books, films, sermons, all trying to place a face on a prophecy. But Scripture does not describe him by appearance. It describes him by position. He will exalt himself above all that is called God and sit in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. This throne cannot exist in concept. It must exist in stone. And now, with every vessel prepared, every priest trained, every garment sewn, that throne is taking shape, quietly, carefully, exactly as foretold. This isn't religious revival. It's a setup. The sacrifices must begin, so they can be stopped. The temple must be raised, so it can be defiled. And the world must be lulled, so it can be shaken. Because this man of sin, this son of perdition, won't rise through tyranny. He'll rise through peace. He'll confirm a covenant. He'll offer security. He'll unite what politics couldn't. And the world, desperate for stability, will bow. Even Israel will believe, for a moment, that they have found a friend. But halfway through the prophetic week, he will reveal his face. He will enter the temple, and the world will remember. That peace was not the end. It was the bait. Because once the abomination stands, once the holy place is polluted, there will be no more delays. Judgment will accelerate. The wrath of God will be loosed. The clock will strike, and all who have eyes will see what lies behind the veil. So now we ask, if the temple is rising, if the priest is appointed, if the people have returned, then where is he? Where is the one who walks in shadow, waiting for a throne to crown his deception? And more importantly, will the world recognize him when he smiles? There is a gate in Jerusalem, sealed in stone. It faces the east, looking toward the Mount of Olives. Muslims call it Bab al-Dahabi, the Golden Gate. Jews call it Sha'ar HaRachamim, the Gate of Mercy, but heaven calls it a doorway of return. It's the only gate in the old city's wall that's been bricked shut for centuries. Ottoman sultans sealed it, believing they could stop what prophecy had declared. They planted graves in front of it, thinking a Jewish Messiah would not tread on defilement. But prophecy does not fear stones, and the Messiah walks where he wills. Ezekiel saw it first, a gate facing east, and the glory of the Lord returning through it. Zechariah saw it next, a day when the Lord would place his feet on the Mount of Olives, splitting it in two. And the disciples stood there last, on that same mount, watching Jesus ascend into the clouds. The angel told them plainly, "This same Jesus, who was taken up from you, will return in like manner." That return is not theory, it's trajectory. The Mount of Olives still stands, the gate still waits, and every tremor, every war, every firestorm pulls the timeline tighter. The world watches for the Antichrist, but the heavens watch for the King. Because while the false Messiah rises in shadow, the true one prepares to descend in glory, not quietly, not secretly, with the voice of a trumpet, with fire in his eyes, with heaven's armies behind him. And the gate will no longer be sealed, because no stone can stop the Son of David from entering his city. And as the dust of deception rises, as the final players take their positions, as the stage is bathed in tension, there will come a moment, silent at first, when the mountain splits beneath his feet, the gate breaks open like thunder, and the king rides in, not to die, but to reign. So now, in the space between warning and fulfillment, between trembling and triumph, where do you stand? Are your eyes on the war, or the one who walks through fire? Are your hopes tied to peace talks, or to a gate that's about to break? Because prophecy is not sleeping. It is marching. The dust is rising. The stones are moving. The gate is breathing. And heaven is closer than we think.